everybody, and welcome to today's episode of The Link Up. I am so excited to have this special guest in the studio today. She is a Mary Monarch Miss Aloha World Champion. She's my Kumu Hula, an amazing wife, mother, daughter, tita, and friend. And she also just casually happens to have an undergrad in Hawaiian studies and a master's in education. So without further ado, Aloha Keonilei.
Aloha, my kako. So good to be here.
It's so good to have you here. I'm so excited to get into everything hula today with you. But before we do you maybe want to tell our listeners and viewers a bit more about yourself?
Well, like you said, I'm a Kumu Hula here in Aotearoa. I've had my hello here for just over 8 years, which is really exciting. Yeah, and we can talk about that later, definitely. But it was not something that I ever imagined would actually happen, especially here far away from home. But It's been such a blessing in my life. And like you mentioned, I'm a former Miss Aloha Hula, or like we say, once a Miss Aloha Hula, always. And so I'm part of a very special group of women in Hawaii who hold that title.
Yeah.
And yeah, my ohana here, I have 3 keiki, 1 on the way very soon.
Yay.
Surprise, super surprise. So we'll see what I have. And but yeah, there's a lot of things about me that I guess I could share, but the main things are that I'm a staunch aloha aina, which means I love my Hawaii, I love my people, and I think that it's an important trait to carry no matter who you are and wherever you are and whatever ethnicities or identifying factors you have about yourself, that you love those things about you and where you come from. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. And of course, a good friend of yours for quite a while.
Yeah,
and
it's been a long time. I knew you when you were studying your master's. So
True.
That's a while ago.
A long time ago. The time I don't want to talk about. Chicken. But yeah, no, a very long time. And it's been lovely to also get to know you as time has gone on.
Yeah, you've definitely been a huge blessing in my life in so many different ways. So yeah, I'm really excited to have this kōrero, this talanoa with you and speak more or talk more, I should say, about the journey of hula, which is the title of today's episode. Obviously, being someone under you, under your tutelage and part of your halau, that's something I'm really excited to get into. So I guess for me, I like to say that hula in the Pacific world is what ballet is to the European world. It has so many facets to it in terms of discipline, lifestyle, even just the focus that comes with hula. So could you please let our listeners really know what is hula?
I'm very curious about that term, to be honest. I'm like, are you saying we're elitist? No.
No, I'm talking about the athleticism of it. I didn't even think of it from that point of view. Wow. But actually, okay, maybe I'll stop saying that.
Not in a bad way. I mean, I think, okay, so I'll be totally honest. This is a story I like barely ever share because it's a little bit embarrassing. But when I was 21, I came here to Aotearoa for an exchange program. I was down at University of Otago and was meeting all kinds of people, you know, the normal sort of New Zealand population that you would meet. And of course, the Pacific diaspora here.
Very multicultural.
Very multicultural, very diverse. And I kept hearing people saying they were Niuean. And literally 21 years old, living in the Pacific my entire life, I hadn't ever heard of Niue.
Wow.
This is what's so crazy. You know, we think we know, but we don't.
Yeah.
You know, and our perspective is so driven by what we know and what we've lived.
And it's very, like, insular in some ways.
Totally. And, you know, Hawaii is already this super isolated
Yes. It's like on the other side of the world.
Totally. We don't got anybody around us, really. And, but not to make an excuse. But what I'm trying to share is coming here to Aotearoa opened my eyes to the comparison between what I knew to be this Pacific culture, and specifically Hawaiian culture, and the way we do things as Pacific people. And then really opening my eyes to seeing how the rest of the Pacific kind of roll, you know, and how they see the world and what they value. And it was a beautiful thing. But that's why I'm always a little bit hesitant to share a little bit about hula in those kinds of comparisons of the ballet of this world or whatever it is, because we are very different. And when I start to kind of get into the nitty gritty of how we're different, it kind of is what you said. Like, there are things about how we protect our hula and how we teach our hula that are strict.
Yes.
And have a lot of protocols around them. Yes. And the knowledge around, well, just, it's all encompassing, you know, and similar to ballet, like when you dance ballet, I guess you're a ballerina.
Yes.
It's your life. Like it's a identifying
trait of who you are.
It's part of who you are. And it's definitely like that with hula. You know, in the hula world, there's a common term that is used all the time, which is hula is life. And I think it kind of came out of a trendy way of, you know, things you could put on a t-shirt and things like that. But actually, it comes from our Kumu Hula. It comes from our sources of hula or our teachers of hula. Because once you become a hula dancer, you become a poe hula. That's like who you are. And it drives how you behave and what you believe and so many other things, how you carry yourself in society, how you treat others. It's more than just, I know these dances and I know how to do these steps. So it's, hula's different, I think, but I also don't know enough about other Pacific dance forms to really make an academic comparison. I couldn't write a dissertation about it. Let's just say that. But I definitely have thoughts.
Yes. And I mean, from your lived experiences then, what is hula? What does it mean to you?
My lived experience? Gosh, I've been dancing hula since I was 3 years old.
Right.
Hula is life for me. And it's been a driving factor in my life that has driven me to strive for excellence in other areas of my life because of the teachings I've had in hula, the discipline I've had in hula. So in my lifetime, I've had 3 main Kumu Hula.
Right.
I started with Kumu Hula Olana Ai as a 3-year-old all the way till I was 9 years old. And if you know anything about, you know, hula in Hawaii, you know that Kumu Hula Olana Ai was very good at teaching keiki and disciplining and getting amazing results with young children. Just the caliber and the level of hula that you see from these keiki are amazing, or these children. Yeah. And so I had that as my first sort of upbringing. You know, I'm not even kidding you. 7 years old, 2-week boot camp. We're there from like 8 in the morning till like 5 o'clock at night. We're sent with our lunch, some snacks, and a towel, and don't come back until this time, kind of a thing. I mean, 7 years old doing this kind of stuff.
That's intense.
And it's all hula. Right. You're dancing the whole day, you know, and that just shows the level of commitment. But I also think the level of aloha for this dance form, this art form. Yeah. But really, it's a belief system. I always say that because there's so many lessons being learned in a hula classroom. Yeah. So, and then I moved to Chinky Mahoi, Kumu Hula Chinky Mahoi, when I was 9 years old, and I danced with him till I was 15. Right. And I share that, you know, if people know a little bit about hula, they'll know who Uncle Chinky is. But he was actually also like a waka'ama coach.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so he did waka'ama, like we call it hoiva'a. But so he was very athletic. The athleticism was on a different level.
Yes.
So I had come from Olana, who was very gentle, and they're known for very like happy faces, and then to Uncle Chinky, where I was running laps, and it was all about getting this physicality of hula and discipline. Truly, you make a mistake, you go run around the whole building. Come back by the next verse.
Wow.
Or you'll run again. Like, there was a whole nother approach. But in that, I always say that through my first 2 Kumu Hula, I learned really important values that I carried through into my life, into, even school.
Right.
So my final Kumu, who is now still my Kumu and will be my Kumu until I go myself, is Kumu Hula Melia Lobenstein Carter. And I actually started with Kumu Melia's grandmother, Auntie May Lobenstein, and I had the honor to learn from her for a few months before her passing. And this is like that heart connection for me. I had all the physicality. I had the information I needed around how to actually hula and how to be disciplined and remember my implements and my costumes and show up. I mean, I still was kind of about it. I used to be called the Poina sister, which means the forgetter, sister. But I had, the tools that I needed. But when I came to Melia, that was where I learned the heart of hula.
Right.
And how your aloha for your kumu and your aloha for this knowledge that's been passed down and shared with you is an honor to carry and hold and to be trusted with that information. And so I don't take that lightly. Being a knowledge holder in that way, that it is a kuleana of mine, it's a responsibility of mine for my lifetime now.
Yeah.
And that's really, hula is this kuleana basically that I'm going to carry forever. And it's an honor. Kuleana meaning responsibility, but also a privilege and a right and an authority to take care, to malama.
Yeah.
That ike, that knowledge. So yeah, that's what it means to me. It's never leaving me. Never.
I'm like, I am processing, but also in awe of just the knowledge you have gained, but also the knowledge and wisdom you choose to share as a Kumu Hula yourself. In terms of the lifestyle, like you said, hula is life. Those disciplines, how have they helped shape who you are as a person?
On a really surface level, I see it as almost like etiquette school.
Right. Okay. That's cool.
Yeah. So like on a surface level, I mean, I was raised by my grandma, so there was already strictness in my home, if that's a word. But no, definitely teaches you how to care for yourself. And especially with Kumu Melia and Kumu Me, there was a real focus for wahine in the halau. We didn't have kane in our halau or men in our halau. So there was a real focus on lifting up young women, teaching them how to interact, how to hold themselves high, how to see themselves with respect and respect yourself. So like on a really surface level, it was how I held myself and presented myself, how I dressed even sometimes. I was always really mindful of presentation when I'd go places because I represented my kumu, so things like that. And it's things you learn in your family home sometimes too. But definitely hula did that for me. And, when you're in the sort of show culture as well and performance and things like that, you learn how to prepare, how to take on responsibilities of managing your time and your things and practicing and all that kind of stuff. And so I actually, for my master's, I did my dissertation on the journey to Miss Aloha Hula
Wow.
as being one of the ways that ancient Hawaiian pedagogy are still carried into our modern day life.
Mm-hmm.
And it was through my own personal experience. And I'm not sure how much our listeners would know about any of this. But typically, halos aren't really kind of run like dance schools. You know, you're not like signing up online and I'm going to send my kid for this term or, you know, it typically when you were going to learn hula, or you were actually approached by a kumu, and a kumu actually asked your family or to send you to them to learn.
Because it's almost like entrusting your child with that person for such a long time.
Definitely.
Especially you were saying in ancient culture, you lived with your kumu.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So, and not only that, but the kumu themselves knew the weight of the ike, or the knowledge that they were going to be passing down or sharing. Right. And so the selection of haumana or students was important as well, right? That they had the skills to actually do what was necessary. So Miss Aloha Hula is kind of that last kind of remnant of that, choosing a haumana to carry some of the knowledge, pouring into that haumana in different ways. And at least that was my experience. Not everybody has the same experience, but I felt so honored to be a part of that process of training for Miss Aloha Hula. That's not even talking about winning. Like this is just the lead up and being selected to have that special time with your kumu and learn from them in that really one-on-one kind of a way. And that experience, I think, made hula a lot more real for me in my life. That this was something that I needed to take seriously. And not only that, being a native Hawaiian and dancing hula, I'm very blessed. I come from a family that know our language and know our culture. That's not that common for us as native Hawaiians. However, hula was still something that just propelled me even more into that interest of knowing who I was and who my ancestors are and honoring them in what I do. And obviously passing it down as well is a whole nother responsibility that I don't think anyone's ready for, right? Being a parent. But even just having the responsibility of passing that knowledge to your children and holding on to it for them. So anyway, I've kind of gone off a little bit.
No, it's great. So as you were saying, your dissertation was in the journey to Miss Aloha Hula, and you are a Miss Aloha Hula now. So you actually won, and with everything that you did, what has the journey of being a champion look like for you in terms of how you give back?
That's an interesting question. I think the first thing is the fact that I was given that opportunity. I was able to identify it as this really special thing for Hawaiians. You know, because I think if you know anything about Mary Monarch, you know, they call it the Olympics of Hula. It's sometimes can be seen as just like a competition, you know, and it's
the best competition. Just putting that out there. The best hula competition in the world.
But, you know, it's a competition. So, you know, a lot of times the focus is on sort of the rivalry or who won. And I think the beauty of going through the process of training for Miss Aloha Hula was me seeing so much more than who won. That wasn't actually the conversation. And to be honest, never once did my kumu ever say like, oh, you better win. Or I hope you win. Or, you know, if you don't win, then it wasn't worth it. Or no, none of those. That actually like was an afterthought was the winning. You know, it was about the journey. It truly was. And so, for example, you do a kahiko number and a wana number as Miss Aloha Hula, and And every kumu has their own approach. Sometimes kumu pick the songs for their haumana. Sometimes the haumana chooses or the student chooses. For me, I was given the opportunity to feed into what I'd like to dance. And for me, you know, I was 23 years old. I was all about repping the island I was from. I had this complex that, you know, nobody ever talked about how great Oahu was.
Yeah.
They always just want to say too many tourists and it's too busy. And I had all this aloha for this place that I was from. And so I wanted to dance about that. But the beauty of that journey was I got to learn more about my home. Through my kumu, she introduced me to other kumu who could share stories about mele or songs about Oahu, stories about Oahu. And I ended up dancing for the goddess of fun. Her name is Mamala. And her story of drinking ava and surfing and lovemaking and playing konane, which is like a board game in Hawaii. And just this really jovial, fun attitude, which everybody seemed to think fit me very well. But I enjoyed the journey of learning my culture, learning my history, learning through these ideas about goddesses or mythology, what was important to my people.
Right.
You know, back then and how they saw the world, and definitely drove how I see myself now. I definitely think fun is important.
Absolutely.
I'm all about that, you know, the
and our
joy.
halal has a lot of fun, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, it's the other part of it was, as a young 23-year-old, I also really wanted to win, and not just for me, but because I wanted to win for my kumu. And it kind of creates, you start to understand when you have this special time with your kumu, how awesome these people are, you know, how much they know and how much they're willing to share and pour into you and aloha you and love you. And that's why we always say hala is like a ohana. It's like a family, because it is, you know, a kumu hula doesn't take on students and people just like a
randomly.
It's not like, oh yeah, pay your money, pay your tuition, whatever. I mean, for most kumu, you know, it's come, and I'm actually, like, when I say yes, you can be my homana, I'm saying yes to taking care of you for however long that's gonna be. And I think that's such a beautiful thing to have that. And even when I see my first kumu hula, my first two kumu hula, you know, they still remember me and say aloha and joke with me a little bit, you know, obviously because I went to move on and learn from others, but there's so much aloha between, you know, they understand the journey of hula and the journey of the dancer, and you go where you're meant to go, kind of a thing.
I love having this conversation with my own kumu hula, and I guess leading into my next question, you are my kumu hula here in Aotearoa. What was that journey in becoming a kumu hula like for you?
Okay, so it's actually still a journey that I'm on. And it's interesting because in Kumu Media's hula genealogy and our understanding, a lot of time it's about giving a blessing to go ahead and teach. And so basically over 8 years ago, I called my kumu and I said, oh, I have these 5 wahine, or these 5 women who are really interested in learning hula. And I'm just not sure, like, what I should do. I told her, like, could I teach them? But can it just be like a community group kind of thing? Like, you know, this is me trying to shy away from the responsibility of anything. And, you know, like a hula group. You know, this is what I'm telling my kumu. And she's like, well, what she says first, why don't you ask them, like, why they want to learn hula? And so we go out, we have dinner. It was a group of wahine that had kind of been pulled together by
our OG5.
Our OG5, that's right, from the Hello. And pulled together by this one wahine, Robin, who had approached me and who I was actually tutoring in Olelo, Hawaii.
Right.
And that's how we had met. And then I guess, they found out slowly, oh, she dances hula. Oh, she's maybe we'll ask her if she'll teach us. So basically, when I asked them why they wanted to dance hula, their answers floored me with their aloha for wanting the authentic version and wanting to do hula justice and to have a genuine relationship with the ike, with the knowledge, and to not be, as we say in Hawaii, making any kind, just just doing it to do it,
no tourist hula here.
They really were sincere. And so I went back to my kumu and I said, okay, this is what they would like to learn. And she said, well, if you're willing, then I think it would be a beautiful thing to teach them. And I said, oh, well, I'll just be like I'll just alaka'i them. Like, I'll just be this kind of like pseudo leader kind of situation. And what she told me was, well, but you're going to be their kumu. Are you ready to do that? And she basically asked me if you are going to say yes, then you take care of them. They're your responsibility. You malama them from now on. And I really took that to heart. And so I still really, really hesitate with the term Kumu Hula because I know there's still so much more that I can learn myself. And I'm excited to still learn from my Kumu because thank you, Lord, she's still here with us and I can ask her questions and all of that. And so my journey hasn't ended either, but definitely having a halau here has been one of the most enriching experiences in my life that was so unexpected. And it's not like it was fully like, oh, I never want to be a Kumu Hula. No, in second grade when they asked me, what do you want to be when you grow up? I said Kumu Hula. And I drew my little ipu and me playing my ipu. So, it's not like...
It's been the dream
It's
for
been
a
a little
while.
bit there and I've been in denial, definitely. But I love hula. It's something funny my mom always shares, and I bring it up because it's a good reminder for me. It's not so much a showing off kind of thing, but she always would say, I went away to school in Colorado, and I've gone away all the time. I've come here for school even. But she always says, oh, when you come home, and I would dance in a show, my kumu would always let me go and, oh, just jump in the line or whatever it is. She's like, oh, your face, just shines so bright and this light is just shining when you're dancing hula. You just love it. So my mom always used to say, like, since you're a baby, like, you just love dancing hula. And I do feel that, like, beyond anything when I dance hula, it's like this overwhelming sense of joy and contentment with the world and myself, and also an opportunity to share so much aloha with others, and I've always felt that, but never was able to articulate what a blessing it's been in my life until more recently.
Wow.
But
That's amazing. What has it been like for you teaching in Aotearoa compared to being back in your homeland?
Oh wow, yeah.
The differences even,
Yeah, it's definitely. I've never had a halau in Hawaii. Obviously, back to my story, and I don't know what that might look like for me in the future. But definitely teaching hula here in Aotearoa, there was so much more backstory that I think I've had to share.
Yeah.
And ensure that my haumana, my students understand before we can move on to anything. And so the goals of halau have changed, obviously, through the 8 years here in Aotearoa. Yeah. At first, I kind of started just trying to introduce these ideas and these practices and how we're meant to behave. All those things I talked about before. It's like when you're teaching people in adulthood already who haven't actually seen hula their whole lives being done around them or being surrounded by it, everything's new. And I realized really quite quickly how much I had to explain to ensure that we got the results we needed. Because I wasn't about to have a halau with my name on it that was doing things that they shouldn't be doing.
Right.
And so, you know, we do things a little bit differently here, obviously. And like you would know that even just trying to get our traditional adornments can sometimes be challenging.
Yes.
But we do our best to do the best that we can here. But I definitely think there's another aspect to it of respecting this place, this aina in which we dance hula. And that's definitely been a huge part of our journey in the last 3-4 years. Yeah. Now we kind of know the steps. We know a little bit about our hula history, our hula family. Okay, now it's how do we responsibly dance hula in another aina, in another land, and bring honor to this aina and the people of this aina, as well as maintaining our protocols and our ways of learning to Hawaii. So it's a duality there, definitely.
Yeah, I definitely know that when, like, I've grown up around performing arts for the majority of my early life, but it wasn't until I joined the halau and you became my Kumu Hula that I started to be very different in the way I did hula. Because before I was like, oh yeah, I'll just make up a dance with like Hawaiian moves and like we'll go perform it at church or whatever. Whereas now there's such a huge, like, once you know
now
the knowledge, like, now that you know it, you're like, oh, we shouldn't be doing that. Or, oh, why do people do that without knowing? Or giving the proper respect that is called for when it comes to this stuff. Because people, like, everyone can do something they like that looks pretty. But whether you actually give honor where it's due is another thing, and or even just giving it the proper respect or reverence that it deserves, because these aren't like small things. Like, these are lineages and, you know, genealogies that have come down through the ages. And when you're getting that shared to you, you have a responsibility to take that on board.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so it's definitely been sobering for me.
It's funny because I just had a conversation with a very high up there dance professional. Let's just leave it at that. And she said something that was beautiful. She's actually a tangata whenua, but she said it's a taonga.
Yeah,
I see that. And so it's, you can't just write it down in a book and then somebody else can do it and then the next person can do it and just share in that way. It has to be cared for, and certain people care for that. You know, it's definitely a concept that is very foreign for a Western guys, because, you know, in a Western society anything can be bought or sold or owned. Yeah. You know, and hula is not one of those things. Although there are people who kind of dance and there is beauty in that as well. I think, you know, there's that saying, you know, imitation is the best form of flattery. Not all Hawaiians will agree. But we can definitely see the aloha. Yeah. People see hula and they see the beauty. They see, many will say they feel even this spirituality, this healing when they dance our form of dance. But you and I both know that until you kind of know a little bit more and you're taken on that journey, that's just scratching the surface. Exactly. What you're feeling is really just the surface of how amazing hula is. And that's why I say that I feel that hula is this extension of aloha, is this extension of that value. That if you treat it properly and you take care of it, that it will aloha you in your life and anything that you do.
I've had people say to me, oh, Shah, you're such a purist or you're such a traditionalist. But I'm like, actually, people like me help anchor what was or help continue on the old ways that are actually really important to things that matter to our cultures. And I'm not trying to like gatekeep. I'm just saying there is a time and place for everything. And honoring those things is actually important to moving forward.
Well, gatekeeping is also a really Western idea anyway, because the whole premise, right, if we go back to what I shared before of Kumu picking students, was also around protection. It wasn't just about, oh, I only like you, or, you know, it was about who can handle this information, who can carry this forward, who's going to hold these responsibilities. And these are things that you start to get into when you take your hula seriously. And yeah, I don't want to say it's only in hula, because it's not. I mean, I know that these kinds of systems live in definitely in other Pacific cultures around our forms, different forms of art or music or song or dance or any kinds of cultural protocols. You know, you can think of hundreds. Like if you just really think about it, you wouldn't just rock up to an ava ceremony and be like, I'll sit here and serve the ava. Like, no, you're not. And it's not about gatekeeping. It's about you not being embarrassed because you're doing it wrong or whatever it is, right? So it's very similar with hula. Why wouldn't it be? Why would it be any different, you know? And unfortunately, sometimes it's our own people kind of confusing the lines and blurring the lines a little bit. And but you know, we can all receive the grace of learning. If we're willing to learn. If we're willing to understand. So I definitely didn't understand fully how important it was to take care of this knowledge, and also to be really mindful who I'm teaching as well. Until I started. And then I was like, whoa, should I be sharing this? You know, with anybody? Maybe not, you know? And it's not about gatekeeping. It really isn't. It's about kuleana. And that's actually the conversation we've been having in our halau probably for the last year, right? Is if you're going to dance hula, it's not enough to dance hula because you love Hawaii. And you think Hawaii is so beautiful and it's a paradise and you want to visit there all the time, and it makes you feel so happy to see the waves and the trees and you gotta love Hawaiians too. You know, love all the Hawaiians, whatever situation they're in, and be an advocate, be an ally for our people if you're gonna dance this hula. You know, there's so much to think about.
Because you have a responsibility when you're learning these beautiful art forms from these cultures to actually represent the people as well and be a voice for them, especially if they don't have a voice or it's not being heard.
Definitely. And I think once you start dancing hula, you start to really understand the blessing. And definitely in our halau, our ohana, our hula ohana, we are such a ohana to each other. And the way that we react and treat each other, all of those values are based in Hawaiian culture. You know, and that's why it's working that way. And that's the beauty that we get to see when we're together and spend time with one another. And even have our ohana from Hawaii come and pour into us every once in a while. It's just so amazing to have those times together. And that's when I definitely am, I don't want to say I'm so proud to be Hawaiian, but I feel so blessed to have these value systems in my culture that bring so much peace and aloha to people who are not in my culture. And I know it's a very controversial topic, and not all Hawaiians will agree with me, definitely, you know, and I understand that. I understand that way of thinking really well as well. Like, I get that. But at the same time, when I see people's lives being changed through our knowledge and through our practices, it's hard for me to think they shouldn't have that opportunity. If that makes sense.
Absolutely.
But it's a huge responsibility because I am responsible now for these people I've taught. And that's can be overwhelming.
I can imagine. Or I can't imagine, actually. Because that is a lot, but it is wonderful to be one of your haumana, wonderful to be under you. I really want to go back to, because I mentioned lineage and genealogy. Can you share a bit about that and how it relates to hula? Because most people won't understand that.
True. So you have your own lineage, right? Your ancestors, so who you share blood with.
Right.
In a hula context, you have hula genealogy. So basically who you've learned hula from. It's interesting because if you take Mary Monarch, for example.
Right.
And you're watching. If you're a real hula buff, like if you know hula history, every time you see a Kumu Hula come up, you know who their Kumu was and who their Kumu's Kumu.
Right.
And all of that matters because it basically, when you see them dance, you're looking for their Kumu.
Right.
And so when you see like a certain move that you know that Kumu does, it's like, what's the word? It just re-emphasizes the beauty of what they're sharing and what they're presenting.
And who it came from.
And it's funny, one of a very famous uncle of mine, I won't mention his name, but when I was running for Miss Loa Hula, I was all up in my academic space. So like I had found this really, amazing poetry. I had found this song in one of the Hawaiian newspapers. And I was like, oh, uncle, can you like put a melody to this? I just think it's so beautiful. And it just still cracks me up to this day. He basically puts his hand on the paper and he like moves it out of the way. And he's like, nobody wants to see this. And I was like, crushed. Okay. But then he goes on to say, baby, they don't want to see you. They want to see your kumu and your kumu's kumu when you get on that stage.
Wow.
That's what they want to see. And in that moment, it was like, it was humbling, but it was beautiful because I connected with that straight away. I resonated with that idea. Yes, I want to show my kumu and my kumu's kumu. And I do. I want to be this representative. I just want to be this vessel. Like, I don't want them to even see me, you know? And it just still cracks me up to this day when I think about that lunch. He just was fully like, nobody wants to see that. But it's true. Like, even sometimes when I look back at my Miss Loa Hula Awana, I can never watch myself dance. I cringe and I just don't want to see it.
I don't know why, because we all love to watch you dance.
But I always, since I was small, I'd love to dance for people though, don't get me wrong. But watching myself, cringe. But I could watch myself on that. And I think because when I was watching, I really saw my kumu. Like, I was like, oh, I look like May, or I look, that was so cool, and I appreciated that my uncle had poured into me in that way to just really remind me what was important. And that's part of hula, is this genealogy that you uphold these practices and you continue them and that you don't kind of muddle, because every style, every genealogy, every hula family has something unique to share and say.
Absolutely.
About our history, about our culture, and about where they come from. And so it's so cool. And it's like right now in the Mary Monarch sort of main halau lineups, we've got a couple halau that have husband and wife kind of kumu hula combos going on. But they have come from different hula genealogies. Right. But it's like when you see them come together and you see their choreography and you'll see one move from one hula ohana and then another move from a different hula ohana. It's like, oh, that looks so good, together, and recognizing those things that they've kept the purity of these motions and these moves and still managed to put them together in these beautiful ways. Oh, it gives me we call it chicken skin, but goosebumps, It's like, it just gets you so excited to see, in a way, an evolution of our hula and yet still maintaining these cultural practices and protocols. It's so cool.
Wow, that has been so much information and knowledge and wisdom to take in. And I'm so grateful that you've been able to come on the podcast and share all of this. It's phenomenal. I don't have another word for it. But before we wrap up, do you have any final thoughts you'd like to share with our listeners and viewers?
I'm just really excited to have an opportunity to talk about hula with this large sort of audience, not necessarily Hawaiians or people interested in hula. So that's cool. I think the main things are, whenever you're sort of interacting with indigenous knowledge and information, it's important to take a step back and think about the kupuna, the ancestry, the lineage of these ways of thinking, and just keeping in mind that this is hundreds and hundreds of years of energy and knowledge and wisdom in these forms. It's not just some, yay, we're gonna do this fun little thing and anybody can do it. I just really want to, can you just come and quickly do something like that? Right. But just really showing respect for what people can or can't share, and don't be afraid to ask the questions of what is appropriate and what might not be. Because I think sometimes people are nervous because they don't want to be told no.
Right, yeah.
So I think the biggest thing is don't be afraid to be told, no, you can't do something. Be afraid that you'll do something you shouldn't be doing, know? So ask the questions so that you can, if you are so privileged and blessed to have the opportunity to learn, that you learn for real. That you're going to have that full experience that you're meant to have, with nothing being taken away. So I guess that would be my last sort of thing, if you ever want to engage with these types of knowledge bases or art forms, just be mindful of those kinds of things.
Yeah. I don't have any final thoughts to add to that because you said it all. This has been one of the best conversations I've ever had. I absolutely love and adore you, and thank you so much for coming on and sharing.
Mahalo for having me, Shah. It's great to be here.
It's the best. I've really enjoyed this, and I'm excited for our next episode. We get to talk about other stuff together. That would be so awesome. So mahalo nui Kumu for joining us, and mahalo for everyone who tuned in to listen or view this episode. If you have any questions or any feedback or even any topics you'd like us to discuss, email us at info@thelinkup.co.nz or send us a DM via our IG or TikTok social media pages. We will see you next time at The Link Up. Aloha!